First off, this is Public Service Recognition Week. So thank you all for what you do for state government and whatever agencies you are visiting from. We appreciate it. And also thank you to all our online folks for everything that you are doing. All Oregonians appreciate it. And just a real quick overview of agenda. We're going to be talking about Oregon bias, year-end financial rule, year-end close, year-end and biennium close, requesting year-end reporting, structure review, warrant expires, and we do have a Datamart update. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to Andy from Oregon Buys.
Thank you, Justin. Hello, everyone. Hello, online world. I'm Andy Kiza, DAS e-procurement team, and with me here is Anya Corbett, also from DAS e-procurement team. And we are going to talk about a couple Oregon Buys updates related to Biennium and for today's update. So, Anya, take it away, please.
So, the first thing I want to say is if you receive these slides by email ahead of the meeting, the slide you're looking at right now is a little bit different than what you have in your email because, of course, we changed it at the last minute. So, but these slides will be available, so you'll get this slide later. Also, I need to look at my notes and I have to have my reading glasses. So if I give you the school marm look, it's because I'm looking at notes and things and not because I'm giving you all the eye. I can give you the eye. If anybody needs it, I will give you the eye. So first of all, the Oregon Buys fiscal year is what we use in the system. That is the same thing. If you're an R-Stars user, if you're an accounts payable person, that is the same thing as the appropriation year. For our purposes, we generally use the term fiscal year, but if you are an AP person or you do work in R-Stars or you're a financial person and you use the term appropriation year, please substitute that in your brain. On the procurement side, we use fiscal year. And just in case there's anybody here from ODOT, you might also hear year end. So there's a couple different terms out there. So we are moving to a new biennium in Oregon Buys. And that's going to require us to do some things in the system, and it's going to require you guys to do some things in the system. People can actually select fiscal year 27 in Oregon Buys for purchase orders. That's been available since January. It's not really going to do anything for them right now. They can select it, but it's not going to go anywhere. You can only select that on the accounting tab in Oregon Buys. Point out the screenshot, and it's very small, and I apologize for that. But over here, we'll see that this is a very small 27. That is the fiscal year, or the appropriation year. And that's pretty much the only place you're going to see that. When it gets to you, if you're an AP person, that's where you're going to see it. So for the procurement folks, we see it in a couple other places. Before we get there, we have some drop downs, we have some things we can select. But you're only ever going to see it right there. Make sure I am okay. Let's see here. So the Oregon Accounting Manual dictates that the PO needs to exist in the fiscal year that the orders are received. And that's super important as we move to the next biennium, because people are putting orders in now that they know they're not going to get until June, July, August. That's the next fiscal year appropriation year biennium. Yeah. So they're going to put those orders in with that fiscal year 27 because that's when they're going to get it. That's when they're going to receive their item or items. I believe it says on here anywhere, this can't be changed if you need to. If somebody said, it should come in, late May, early June, and it doesn't actually come in until July 1st. that can be changed. And that's something that you, don't look. It's like an earthquake. Woo. That is something you can change later if that happens, because we know no one ever gets a delayed order. No one ever they never have snowstorms in Minnesota and all of a sudden it's, oops, sorry, we can't deliver your item on time. So that is something that you can change later. If you get an order and it's in the wrong fiscal year to begin with, like they've picked 25 and you know something's not coming until 27, they're ordering it now because of tariffs, but you know it's not going to come until September or October, you can kick that back to them and say, hey, this isn't going to come until the next biennium fiscal year appropriation year. Can you change that PO so that it comes in at the right time? The fiscal year 27 account codes will not be available until July 1st because that's the beginning of the biennium. So procurement folks right now have some things that they can do to make that obvious that the account codes are not available yet and that they will come back and do that as of July 1st. But you may occasionally, I don't think, if they have the next in there, will it go anywhere? It'll still process.
Submit it through with the next, and then it needs to be updated once those new accounting codes load in after July 1st.
So what you may see is a PO that comes through and the accounting code says next. The system will allow that, and that's a cue to us. Oh, this is for the next biennium, but you have to go back and put in those codes. So again, you could kick those back and say, you forgot to change that. It's for the next biennium. We're there. Go ahead and change it. But they won't be available until 7/1. So for people who are creating their POs to receive in the next fiscal year, you may see that next code because they know it's not coming until then and the codes aren't available now. We do have a guidance document for procurement staff. And if you want to take a look at it, please do. It is procurement focused, so there's not a lot of AP information in it, but it can help you understand what procurement staff are doing so that when it gets to you, you go, oh, that's what, oh, I get it. Okay, I see. So we do have that, and there's a link here, and this link is in your current slide, I think. If it's not, you'll get this and you can go to this. It's on our training page. There is a lot of other information on our training page as well. So if you want to look at any of those documents, feel free. There are a few AP documents on our training page if you are looking for information about AP and organ buy, so you can check those out too. And if you have any comments, questions, concerns about our training documents, please let us know, because you guys are using the system more than we do, especially when it comes to AP. If we're telling people the wrong thing, we want to know. We need to know so we can fix it. Please help us. There's also a report in Oregon Buys that you can get to that will show you POs that have that next account code. So if somebody in your office says, oh, I put that in there, I can't remember, and I put them in like 10 and I don't know, they can pull a report and get all that information. And the report is called, and it's very small. Oh, that's not
that screen.
That's not it. The account is, or the report is called POs with next account code. Brilliant, brilliant. So yeah, that is going to be pretty obvious to you. If that's available, if that's something that would be helpful to you, please pull that report. Oh, this is the, and then procurement is testing functionality for fiscal year change orders on POs starting in July. We are testing it. Not sure how we feel about this. We're not sure how it's going to go, but we're testing it. I believe there are some agencies that are doing this right now, which is where we got the idea. So we are testing it. We're not sure. We're still looking at it. But that is something that might come, which would allow you to actually just change the PO rather than having to kick it back or do a whole new one. So hopefully that will work. And then this screen, this little thing here shows you just a little screenshot of our training site. We have a number of different trainings. We have them for agency users. We also have them for members of our ORCAP program, our Oregon Cooperative Purchasing Program. So make sure that you're looking at state agency guides, and normally they'll be on this side, and they're broken up by role. So they'll say BP for basic purchasing, DA for department access, and then way down at the bottom is AP. But you'll see this is very blurry because it's a very small screen and a very small screenshot and a very big screen here. But this is actually the training document for procurement professionals. If you know a procurement professional who is not aware of this document, please feel free to direct them to it. We have several different communication systems, but not everybody pays attention to all their emails because everybody gets a bunch. So that is that slide.
I did see a question in the chat for what slide are we on? And it's, yes, it's number 5 is the slide. But this is the one, like Anya said, we did an update to add these screenshots. So the one you have in your email probably doesn't have the screenshots, but it's got the same bullets.
Yeah. So if we send out emails about our system releases, those come quarterly. The next one will be, we are testing the next system release, and that will happen in July after the biennium change, appropriation year for year, fiscal year change, because we're not doing that at the same time. We're not doing that to ourselves. So that the next release is going to be slightly delayed. But we do send out release notifications if you would like to receive, and they look exactly like this. There's just a square on the screen that tells you what we're doing, what it's going to affect, and that will let you know when it's done. It's not any other thing. It's not spam. This is all you get. In addition, we have just started, if we have training documents, new training documents to provide, we will send them out with these system releases. We found that that's a good way to make sure that people have the latest, best, greatest, most up-to-date version. We do post those on our training site, but sometimes people don't always manage to get there. So we've started sending them out with these. So if you want to get these notices so you know when the system's going to be updated, we have a mailing list. You can subscribe to it. It is a self-subscription. You go in, you put your name and your email, you click a thing, we approve it, boom, you're subscribed. And I am the one who does it. So I look at your email address and go, look, a state employee, approved. We're not real picky. So we only send these out when we have releases or when we have a hot fix, which is, something has gone wrong in the system and we have to fix it now because it affects functionality, it affects what we're doing. Something really bad is broken and we have to have it fixed right now. We will warn you about that as well. But that is it. So that is all we use this for. This same mailing list, it's called the Organ Vice Procurement List. This is how we communicate anything to procurement professionals when we have something really important system related. So if you want that information, and again, we try not to spam you, go ahead and sign up for that.
Yes, questions, please.
Is Oregon Advise going to allow us to do an effective date of 6/31 for month 13?
Yeah.
Didn't we have to do that in SFMS last year?
So does that mean we have to delete it from the 530 screen and re-enter it since we can't change the effective date?
Do you know what we did on that, Liz?
Yeah, so if it comes over with a 6/30 effective date from Oregon Buys, you could update it to 6/31. If it comes over with a July date, you can do a mass batch change to change the effective date back to 6/31. And I'll talk more about mass batch changes a little bit later.
Okay.
You mentioned that some other agencies were using the change of fiscal year in Oregon Buys. Are we able to do that for agencies like a procurement team? Be like, can we have AP change the fiscal year in Oregon Buys? Or does that have to be?
Not currently. So currently only ODOT and aviation are doing it because they're on the separate financial system. But it's going well for them. So that's what we're testing. And when the next release comes out on July 12th, we're anticipating to turn that on So probably not for the end of this biennium, but starting in July, we expect to have that. We haven't run into any issues. It seems to be a positive change. So that's what we're shooting for.
Thank you.
And we have had many people say, ooh, yes, 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 we like that. So,
I like doing this.
Yeah, soon, yes, and
Yep.
it should hopefully make people's lives easier. Any other questions? We have anything in the chat? I can paste a copy of the slide, the new slide in here, so everybody has it. I think that was all our questions. Okay, with that, thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Our email address is here. If you need us, reach out, let us know if you have any questions, and we will pass it off to Alan.
Morning, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me all right. My name is Alan, and I'm going to talk about the year-end financial roll job. So SFMA has two programs, DAFM 353 and 356, that roll account balances for select financial tables next year or 2 years. These programs run for 5 fiscal year tables every year and for 5 operation year tables each biennium. Programs are scheduled to run on the last business day of June. This year, that will be Monday, June 30th. So the fiscal year tables affected by these programs are the cash control, document financial, grant financial, contract financial, and project financial. The R-star screen numbers are shown on this slide. All balances in those tables will be rolled forward from fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 26. The appropriation year tables affected by these programs are the budget, appropriation, GL detail, agency fund, and GL summary. All balances will be rolled forward from fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27 for those 5 appropriation year tables. Every GL account is categorized as either a memo account, a real account, or a nominal. Memo and real account balances will roll forward into the next fiscal year in the same GL account. Nominal account balances will roll forward into an equity GL account. The year-end roll job will determine the appropriate equity account based on the D23 fund profile. For this example here, the D23 fund profile shows a GASB 54 code of C1, which stands for committed fund balance. So any nominal GL balances classified as C1 will roll to equity account 3051. And this profile here also shows the closing T codes that will be used when we get to the closing process. So in this example, this D23 fund profile does not show a GASB 54 classification. So in this case, the year-end roll program would look to the D21 profile, and it would look up GAP fund type 06. So any nominal GL balances classified as GAP fund type 06 will roll to equity account 3025. As an additional resource, the SFMS desk manual SIMP 7 document provides an explanation of the year-end roll process. And you can get to the desk manual from the SFMS website. So a couple things agencies need to do. Each agency must create 2 new 25 profiles prior to July 1st. One would be for FY26 and one for FY27. It's important that the last month closed value be 00 on both new profiles. If the last month closed value was not set to 00, you would not be able to post any transactions with July FY26 dates. The following morning, on Tuesday morning, July 1st, the IT file will be closed while I complete the validation of the process. As soon as I can complete the validation and have our programmer open the IT file, I will send out an SFMS news. And if you have any questions regarding the Your Enrolled program, please contact your SFMS agency support analyst. Any questions about the Your Enrolled process? Yeah, I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Up next is Liz for the year-end closing.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to try to talk loud. I am a little bit quiet, so most of the information is already on the slides. So if you can't hear me, follow along the slides, but I will try to talk loud. Amber will let me know if I need to go higher, which she already is. So I'm here to talk about the SFMS fiscal year-end closing guidelines. If you've been to our May user group before, this should seem like a very similar presentation. We also have some handouts that I'm going to go over. If you're in the room, we have some printed copies. If you're online, we should have sent that information out to you. The two I want to mention are the fiscal year-end closing guidelines. They're printed on yellow paper. Similar format as what we've had in prior fiscal years. That's what I'm going to focus on today. We do have another handout that's Biennium close guidelines, and I'm not going to walk through those in detail, but that's another good resource. So I encourage you to take a look at that. These are tools to try to help you for year end, and since we are in an odd number year, it is also Biennium close. So there's some additional information in both of those documents about Biennium close. If you didn't get a copy of the handouts and you need them, you can contact Loretta. She can give you more information on that as well. All right, so the agenda for today, talking about the year-end close guidelines, what they are, what information they have, how they'll be useful, the time period that they cover, and who you can contact with questions. So before I start talking about the year-end guidelines, I do want to share with everyone some information about SARS year-end resources. SARS has a lot of great information for agencies. If you have not seen the guide to year-end closing, I have a link to it here. If you're new to the year-end process, if it's been a while since you've looked at that resource, I highly recommend taking a look at it. It walks through the process for year-end, gives you a good overview, talks about what your SARS analyst does for pre-close reviews. So there's a lot of good information in there. We should also be seeing an announcement soon for the SARS year-end training. They do this every year, typically in June. I haven't seen an announcement come out yet, but it'll come out on the ACFR news list. Each agency does need to send somebody to that training. It's a gold star requirement, so keep a lookout for that. Another great resource is your SARS analyst. If you're not sure who it is for your agency, I've got a link here. You can look it up and see who's supporting your agency from SARS. And we do get a lot of questions on, what's the difference between SARS and SFMS analysts? They do have kind of similar role. We both work with DAS, we support the agencies, but SARS analysts are really more focused on financial statement preparation. They consolidate the ACFR for the state. If you've got questions on how an activity needs to be reported for financial statement purposes, they're going to be your best resource. They can tell you which GLs you need to hit, which comp objects need to be used, so everything goes up correctly at the state level. Your SFMS analyst, our group here today, we focus more on the system side. So if you have questions on the mechanics of making the entry in the system, what T codes do you need to use? What user security do you need to use? Are you getting errors on your entry? Your SFMS analyst can help you with those types of questions. And just a request, we always do this in the training, but it's always good to have a reminder. If you know your agency is going to have some sort of unusual or uncommon situation at the end of the year, maybe you have questions on how to implement accounting standards, maybe you have questions on how to record a new activity that requires year-end entries that you haven't done before,
please reach out early. Some of these questions require both SARS and SFMS to work together in research. So we don't want to have those questions coming in on month 13 close. Please reach out, ask us early. We can do that research and make sure we're giving you the appropriate guidance on how to handle it. All right, so the year-end closing guidelines, you can find it with the handouts today. We will post the information on our user group website. We've got a link here. I highly recommend keeping a copy at your desk, bookmarking it, because this is intended to be a quick resource you can refer to while you're recording transactions at year end to answer common questions. We've put this together. If you've been around for a while, it's a similar format to what you've seen before. We've made a few modifications to it, but the intent is to answer the common questions we get from agencies at year end on how to deal with different batches, what to do on the 530 screen. There's great instructions on mass batch changes, which are very useful at year end if you need to change a lot of transactions in a batch. So it's not going to cover everything, but it's going to cover almost all the common questions that we get from agents. So please take a look at it, read through it. If you can't find the answer in there, or if you're confused about information in there, reach out to your SFMS analyst and we can help you. So the time period that is focused on with these guidelines is really just fiscal month 12 and fiscal month 13. If you're new to the state, fiscal month 13 is the month of adjustment in our accounting system. So you have extra time to make any of those year-end approval entries, any reclassification entries, things that you need to do, journal vouchers, all those types of things. You have a little bit more time to make sure you can make those entries so you have correct financial statements at the end of the year. And a question was brought up earlier. 6/31 is the date, the effective date that you use to signify that it's a month 13 transaction. So you'll see lots of references to 6/31 in that handout. So some deadlines you may already be aware of. Fiscal month 12, June, will close on Friday, July 18th, 2025. Fiscal month 13, the hard close deadline is Friday, August 15th, 2025. Agencies are encouraged to use a soft close deadline the week before. Try to get all your entries in there. It sets you up for success. Then you can review the data. You can start putting together disclosures. If you realize that additional entries are needed, you still have that extra week of hard close to get these in. So topics are laid out in a table. There's a lot of information in that document. I think it's 6 pages long. We've tried to set it up to make it easy to follow and to find the information when you need it. So the first column on the left has all of the different topic areas that we cover. So we've got them listed here on the slide. Things that are commonly coming up for the 530 screen, how to handle balance transfers, cost allocation for those agencies that use our STARS cost allocation. We only have a few, it's a specific module. If you use that, there's some information there. Different transaction types and how to make sure you're recording them in the correct period. It also includes information on how to make entries. What are the common P codes for those? We're only typically doing accruals once a year, so all the common ones are listed in these guidelines. And then we have some other topics that are covered as well. 2 additional columns for what to think about during fiscal month 12, what deadlines you have, how you need to handle things during June, and then how to handle things during fiscal month 13. So I am not going to walk you through every piece of information on these guidelines. We don't have enough time for that, and I don't know that that would keep the interest of everyone. It's a lot of technical information in there. So I'm going to go through the highlights that you can find on each page. So page 1 of the year-end close guidelines has some reminders at the top, good reminders. Whenever you're viewing batches on the 530 screen throughout the year, we always recommend you do view only with F2 when you're just looking to view the transactions. You can also see the transactions by hitting F4 change, but we have seen examples in the past where if an agency does that, it can accidentally put the batch back on.
So if you were hoping to have it release and clear that night, you know, that could prevent it from clearing. We've seen user class security errors come up if somebody went into the batch to change it and they don't have the correct security, even if they didn't save any changes. So just awareness, try to use view only mode if you're just looking at the transaction, especially if that batch has already been released. Another really important reminder, we get a lot of questions about this at fiscal year end because this is different of how the system normally works. When we have 2 fiscal years open, which starting July 1st, we will have fiscal year 25 open and we will also have fiscal year 26. It's really important when you're putting in your transactions to make sure you have that correct effective date. But if you have an effective date on a tracked document, a tracked document means you can look up that document on the 37 screen. Almost all of our documents are tracked. And it's in edit mode 2. Edit mode 2, you can see on the 530 screen. That means the transaction is posted to the financial tables as soon as you've saved it. You cannot correct the effective date to a different fiscal year. So specific to those edit mode 2 batches, if you have a situation where you entered a transaction, you put a 7/1 effective date, and you realize later after you saved it, oh, this actually needs to be fiscal year 25, and I need to change it. You can't just go in and update the effective date like you would normally be able to do throughout the year. Because it's crossing fiscal years, you need to delete that batch edit mode 2 transaction and re-enter it. Good thing to be aware of. We've also got information on the 530 screen. Depending on the type of edit mode 2, they post as soon as they are saved. Edit mode 0, 1, or 3 batches. Those are typically interface batches, payroll, Oregon buys. If you have a subsystem that interfaces to RStars, there's some different instructions of what you need to do at the end of the month. The key thing I want to point out is in this table on the slide in the top right box, your SFMS analyst is going to be reaching out to you to make sure for the month 13 hard close deadline that you've released all the batches for the 6/31 date so that they will clear before we close out the fiscal year on Friday, August 15th, 2025. We want to make sure everything gets posted. If for some reason it doesn't clear, there's some sort of error, you know, somebody goes in and puts it back on hold. If you have a 6/31 effective date transaction on your 530 screen after Friday, August 15th, you should not delete or change that. That has already been included in the year-end reports when we run them Friday evening when we close the system. So if you have that situation, reach out to your SFMS analyst and SARS analyst immediately so we can take a look at that. If we need to delete it or change it because it has an error, SARS has to do additional work to make sure that impact is captured in the financial statements so we don't have questions from auditors about why amounts are different. So highlights from page 2. The main thing I want to point out is about balance transfers. Do not backdate balance transfers after calendar date 6/30/25. That's calendar date. There are a few exceptions to this. An adjustment can be made to backdate a balance transfer if it's within the same agency and within the same gap fund and with the same treasury fund. But in general, you don't want to backdate BTs. We need to make sure what's reported at treasury for 6/30 is matching what's reported in SFMA. There's also some special requirements to make sure that you're recording these transfers in the correct AY. So I would recommend if you've got transfers you're recording after July 1st, take a look at Oregon Accounting Manual Chapter 20, make sure you're good. You may need to record it in AY 27 and then do an accrual to capture it for the fiscal year end report. So you'll see reminders about this to not backdate transfers. We don't recommend typically backdating transfers because we want it in the system to match when cash is actually transferred at Treasury if it's crossing Treasury funds or gap funds. Page 3 goes over some deposit information for June and July bank activity. It also talks about some concepts of cash availability. You won't be able to spend cash in the system for a deposit until it's reconciled on the 13 screen. But for financial statement purposes, any balances recorded in GL 0065 and GL 0070 are both considered cash. So even if it hasn't reconciled on the 13 screen, it would still be captured and rolled up into the financial statements for year end as part of the agency's cash balance. From page 4, if you're an agency that encumbers, we've got some guidance there. There's some things you need to do for biennium close. So instructions there, not all agencies do, so this may not be applicable for you. And we do have guidance on expenditures, how you record those, what effective date you should use, and what T code to use if you need to accrue an expenditure is all captured in that section. We did this year add some additional instruction on Oregon buys batches, how to handle those for year end. If you still have some on the 530 screen, to make sure that they're coded to the correct period. Page 5, we have a lot of information about payroll batches. This really hasn't changed from prior years. Making sure that all your payroll is posted to the correct period. If you need to move things forward to July, how to accrue that activity, you would accrue it with a T code 437. Make sure you're looking at the different types of payroll batches. We have batch type 8 and batch type 9. Batch type 8 will try to clear every night whether you've released it or not. Batch type 9, if there's an error to resolve it, you do need to release those, so they'll clear the 530 screen. There is some differences. Batch type 9 to statistic batches. We also have on the very last box here on the slide, there are some transactions, the PI documents that use T code 857, 862 that agencies cannot make any changes to. So if you have an issue with a payroll batch and it uses those T codes, contact your SFMS analyst if it needs to be moved forward, if you have insufficient cash errors, those types of things. There are helpful tips and reminders throughout the guidance. I already talked about the tips on page 1 about doing transactions and how to correct effective dates if it's a batch edit mode 2. Page 2, information about not backdating BPs unless it meets all of those specific criteria to allow it. We do have a link to the BT contact list on that, those guidelines. If you are working with another agency to transfer, or you need to record due to, due froms, and you're not sure who at that agency you need to work with, that BT contact list will give you the contact information so you know who at the agency you need to coordinate with. Page 6, really important, has the mass batch change instructions. There's multiple different ways to process a mass batch change in SFMA. These year-end guidelines tell you how you need to do it specifically at year-end, especially if you're changing an effective date from one fiscal year to another. So very handy information there. And we've got some other information about fiscal year 26 cost allocation dates for those few agencies that use that feature. So, like I said, a lot of information in there. I don't expect you to absorb it all today, but keep this handout nearby at year end. You should be able to find the answer to your question somewhere in there. If you don't, or it's not clear to you, reach out to your SFMS analyst. We've got the contact information up there of who you can reach out to with questions on any of that. Any questions? Very much. I will turn it over next back to Alan.
Hello again, everyone. All right, my next topic is the year-end close program, DAFU 351. The year-end close program creates transactions that close the nominal GL account balances to the appropriate equity accounts. Closed fiscal year's nominal account balances for the closed fiscal year's nominal accounts will show zero balances, and updated equity balances will be reflected in the closed fiscal year as well as the current fiscal year. Job is run each year after the close of month 13 So this year it's scheduled to run on Friday, August 29th. And as an additional resource, you can review the SFMS desk manual sent 5 document, which you can link to from the SFMS webpage. Now, the General Ledger Close program uses the same method that I described earlier for the year enroll program to determine which equity accounts to close the nominal accounts into. If the D23 fund has a GASB 54 indicator, the program looks to the definitions provided under the table ID GB54 on the D54 profile screen. Those definitions provide both the equity GL account and the T codes to record the closing entries. The D23 fund doesn't have a GASB 54 indicator. The program looks up the fund's gap fund type of D21 profile for the appropriate equity account and T code. As the program acquires the appropriate equity accounts and T codes, closing transactions are generated under batch agency 999 and batch type Y. The documents are document type YG. They'll have an effective date of June 31st, 6/31. So agencies have several duties related to DAFM 351. So I've broken these out between responsibilities before the program runs and those after the program runs. So before the program runs, the agency needs to order 2 reports, DAFR 8650 and DAFR 8920. These reports must be run on either August 15th, which is period 13 close, or on August 22nd, because our requestable reports are only run on Fridays. So these dates are after the FY25 transactions have been completed, but before the closing program runs. The agency will need these reports to verify the GL account balances resulting from. The other responsibility that the agency has before the program runs is to make sure that the last month closed indicator is either 12 or less for the fiscal year 25 profile on the 25 screen. If this indicator is set to 13 on that date, then the system considers month 13 closed and it will not be able to post the transactions when the closing job runs. So here's an example of where to find this indicator down towards the bottom there. You'll notice that it displays the last closed month as 00. So any value from 00 to 12 will allow the year-end close transactions to post. It just can't be 13. Now we can switch our attention to the responsibilities that you have after the program runs. So the closing transactions may have errors, keeping them on the 530 screen. Remember, the program is run under batch agency 999 rather than your own agency. So the resulting batches will be displayed on the 530 screen under agency 999, batch type Y. Any individual at your agency with a user class 48 can view the transactions of those batches to address any errors, but your agency support analyst will also be in contact with you to assist you with any corrections. And your agency analyst will have to release the Y batch because these are system generated batches. Second responsibility comes after your agency support analyst notifies you that there are no outstanding Y batch errors for your agency. At that time, the agency will set the last month closed indicator on the 25 screen to 13 for the FY25 profile. So that month is now officially closed. And again, this is where you find that field on the 25 profile, last month closed. That will prevent any additional period 13 transactions from posting for your agency for fiscal year 25. So the next thing that needs to occur is to pull and retain a copy of the DAFR 3511, which is called the General Ledger Close Control Report. So the RStars News screen includes a link to the electronic report repository, but if you but you can contact your agency analyst if you have any difficulties with accessing those reports. Please remember that this report is only available until September 27th, and it should be retained by the agency for 6 years under OAR 166. The next responsibility is to order the after DAFR reports for month 13, fiscal year 25. These are the same two reports that you ordered before, the DAFR 8650 and the DAFR 8920, that you ordered on either August 15th or August 22nd. Now remember, don't order these after reports until you know that all of your closing transactions have cleared the 530. I would say generally 99% of the transactions clear on the first night when we run it on August 29th. But there's usually a few transactions for a couple agencies that need to have errors cleared the following week. Finally, the last responsibility for the year-end close process is to compare the before and after reports. So you'll see that the nominal accounts are still on the after reports. This allows a final record of the activity for the fiscal year. And those balances are offset with activity to the GL account 2960, which is revenue expenditure summary balance. GL 2960 nets with the balances in all nominal accounts and leaves the appropriate increase or decrease in the appropriate equity accounts. If you detect any errors, anomalies, or omissions between the before and after reports, please contact your agency support analyst as soon as possible. And as we get closer to the year-end closing job this August, you'll be seeing more instructions through SFMS News and from your SFMS agency analyst.
Hi, I'm here with a very fun topic, close. So we all knows state budgetary approves every 2 years. I'm trying to find my right volume here. So every odd years we have a big party of biennium close. And this year we are going to close AY 25 and start AY 27. So as we know, GAAP standards determine the transactions will posted on which fiscal year, but budgetary accounting will show the correct AY, which AY will be the appropriate to post the transactions. Please make sure review OAM 20, chapter 20, to for any questions you have about budgetary accounting and reporting. So liabilities are incurred when service and supplies are received. So for 6 months, we will have both biennium opens, AY 25 and AY 27. Please make sure, consider, we will post to previous AY if goods or services have been received by calendar date June 30th. For the end of previous biennium, AY 25, please review all documents supported GL account balances to prepare for the lapse of the biennium and appropriations, sorry. Only appropriations will stay open. It would be capital constructions. So here we have a 64 screen that shows close date. Documents supported transactions always track through 64 screen. And that's one of the important screens in biennium close. The documents supported GL are in 3 categories: encumbrances, account receivables, and other non-receivables. So let's dive into each section. Encumbrances are a GL 2735 and 2736. If an obligation represents an encumbrance on June 30th at the end of biennium, the obligation cannot be paid from the biennium ended June 30. The encumbrance must be canceled and reestablished in the new biennium. So all AY 25 encumbrances balances should be zero or the balance offset with T code 931R by month 13 close. And T code 931R will decrease encumbrance balances for fiscal statement, and then the entry will automatically reverse the following months with T code 963R. So all AY 25 encumbrance balances must be zero by December 31st. Cancel AY 25 encumbrance balances and reestablish in biennium AY 27 as appropriate. And we have AR categories. Agencies should move general fund accounts receivable forward to the new biennium if the receivable are not collected by June 30th at the end of biennium. This apply to account receivable that are document supported and do not auto reverse. So all AY 25 general fund AR balances should be zero by June month's end close, and all other AY 25 AR balances must be zeroed out by December 31st when appropriations lapse. Move balances forward to AY 27 or write on. Other GLs, agencies are still allowed to make liquidating entries to prior biennium for 3 more GLs: unreimbursed advances, unearned revenues, and deposit liabilities. And AY 25 balances impacting one of these GLs can be liquidated in AY 27 after AY 25 is closed if the document related to AY 23 or prior always you can refer to Desk Manual Revenue 2 for any questions about biennium close. We have some tools that can help you along when you are going through this process. Please visit our website and you will find our presentation, user group presentation there. And you can order some DAFRs. We have some DAFR reports that absolutely will help you in this process. DAFR 6500, a lapsing appropriation report. This DAFR will show you the balances for different types of BTs. Let's check them out. BT 14, accrued revenue, balances of zero by month 13 close, unless related to a non-document supported receivable. BT 17, accrued expenditure, balance should be zero by calendar date December 31st. And BT 18 and 19, encumbrances, balances should be zero or offset with T code 931R by month 13 close. All balances must be zero by calendar date December 31st. And here's an example of that DAFR and important columns. The other DAFRs are very important. Our DAFR 9750, account receivable document status. DAFR 6590, outstanding deposit liabilities, document supported. DAFR 8680, detail account activity by fund report. And DAFR 3330, deposit reconciliation reports. Other important tool, for sure, it is OBIEE and R-Stars screen, because with R-Stars screen, you will have on-time informations. Here are a couple very important screens you need to monitor during this process. 64 document record inquiry, 86 document transaction inquiry, 62 appropriation financial inquiry, 69 agency fund financial inquiry, 13 deposit researches. If you have any questions about any of this information, always you can refer to desk manuals, call your agency analyst. So let's have Scott.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to try and talk loud, but if it gets a bit louder. Hello, everyone. I'm going to try and talk loud, but if it gets a bit quiet, that's just because I'm kind of a quiet guy and I'm a bit nervous being up here. Today, we will be talking about requesting year-end reports, including recommended reports, time periods at year-end, and finally, reporting period indicators. I expect this to be a short one, so we will be going fast. For month 12 and month 13 close, we recommend ordering the following reports. The DAFR 6530 trial balances by fund and GL, the DAFR 6610 operating statement, and the DAFR 6620 agency balance sheet. Each of these has a different purpose. The trial balances will present the assets, liabilities, and fund balances of a fund at a given time. The operating statement will present the fund level statement of revenue, expenses, transfers, and changes in retained earnings / fund balances for all fund types for GAAP reporting. And the agency balance sheet will generate a balance sheet for GAAP funds. Note that the DAFR 6530 is also available in the OB repository with the title SFMS trial balance, and the DAFR 6610 and 6620 is available with the title DAFR 6610 and 6620. As for reports for the year-end close job, we recommend running the following reports before and after the year-end close runs to verify the job accurately closed various accounts. These include the DAFR 8650 and the DAFR 8920. The 8650 is a trial balance by fund general ledger. It's all as a point in time to indicate that debits and credits are equal, whereas the 8920 general ledger fund trial balance provides a detailed listing of all general ledger transactions summarized by transaction code. So very useful there. Welcome to fiscal year-end close, where there will be up to 3 fiscal months open, 2 fiscal years open, and 2 appropriation years open at the same time. If you are confused, that is why we're explaining this right now. We have a chart below explaining the situation, but let's review just in case. Fiscal year 25 will be open through August 15th. Fiscal month 12 will be open June 1st to July 18th. Fiscal month 13 will be open July 1st to August 15th. Finally, but not in the least, fiscal month 26, fiscal month 01 will be open July 1st to September 5th. It is very important to keep track of this from June to September. But what does this mean for ordering reports? Because multiple fiscal years, fiscal months, and appropriation years are open, using one of the generic indicators can have unintended results. That's why we have this table. Oh, it will really come in handy when ordering. We have current CM, current calendar month activity, PM, prior month calendar activity, CC, last closed fiscal month, CY, current fiscal year, and the top 2 are just typing in the actual month and fiscal year that you need. I would definitely recommend using those top 2s for typing in the period that you need, as these generic indicators will give you very different results based on when you use them and can be a little confusing because we're going to have multiple fiscal months open. So continuing with reporting period indicators, here are recommended indicators for each set of reports. Hopefully this will help streamline things. June close reports for the DAFR 6530, 6610, and 6620. You will order these reports on July 18th. Month 13 close reports, you will order these August 8th. 4 close reports for the DAFR 8650 and 8920, you will order these August 15th or August 22nd. And finally, after reports are ordered any date past August 29th, this little frequency indicator on the example isn't an actual indicator. It's just to show you order it past this day. And note, for most agencies, the frequently control indicator equals S. If your agency controls reporting with the 25 agency control profile screen, the indicator will equal A. And just a little back-end stuff that will be relevant later on, but that is a little too complicated to get into right now. Moving on to resources, please use these links to please use this link to our reports guide. While all the individual reports had links directly to their pages in this guide throughout the presentation, it is always helpful to get some experience with the reports guide as a whole so that you can search for anything that comes your way. And if you know how to use this, you can use this for almost any DAFR report we have and look it up on your own, in addition to the ones mentioned in this guide. In addition, we also have an R-Stars Intro to Reports training being presented by our very own SFMS team in the past that you can click on and go to. Any questions so far? No, we covered a lot of ground and that was pretty fast. All right.
One question here from John, who's asking, are we clear to create the 2025 screen profiles for FY26 and FY27 now?
Yes.
Yes. It took me a while to remember what they were, but absolutely you are clear to create those profiles. In fact, I would encourage you to create those profiles. It'll make program structure reviews a lot simpler for me and my team. Anyway, if that's the only question, let's take it over to Liz.
Hey, hello, everyone. I'm here. This will be a quick kind of plug reminder. We've got program structure reviews. If you attended our February user group, I talked about this in a lot more detail. You can see those slides on our website. There's a recording of the training out there if that's information that you missed and you want to have more detail on. This is just a reminder that they are coming up. Really, what I'm focused on here is agencies that are changing your structure from AY25 to AY27. If you're going to have the same program codes and PCAs in AY27 as you had in AY25, you don't need to worry about this. This does not apply to you. This is just for agencies that are changing things with their program structure. It could be you're reorganizing things. It could be a new bill, new legislation that's requiring you to set up a new program. If your agency has that situation, hopefully you've already been working with SABRS, the budget reporting group at DAS. They need to do the first step. They're going to review your changes to the structure. They're going to set up any new DO4 program codes in AY27. Once you get confirmation that SABRS has completed all of their work, that's when you as an agency need to go in and update your AY27 profiles, create new PCAs. If your agency uses RTIs, review your RTIs and see what updates are needed. There's a very small group of agencies that use indexes for some of this. So if that's the case, you may need to review those as well. We encourage you to do this work as soon as possible. Unfortunately, how things line up, you're going to be dealing with year end and we've got biennium close, and we want you to have this structure set up and ready to go in the system before July 1st, preferably quite a bit before that, because as soon as you set up your AY27 structure, you've made all your changes for AY27, you're going to let your SFMS analysts know. We'll be reaching out to those agencies that we've heard from Sabres have changes to see once that coding is set up. And then we do our work to review to make sure everything's set up appropriately so that transactions will post correctly. You won't have unusual errors coming up. You won't run into those pitfalls where you may need to do a bunch of correcting entries because something didn't get set up appropriately. So please, as much as you can, prioritize that work. If you can get it done early, it benefits you so it's not lining up with year-end deadlines. I know there's some situations where it may be outside of your control if you're waiting for a bill to be signed. So just let us know. We'll work with your agency on that. So please don't delay on this. We'll be reaching out if you're one of those agencies that has changes. If you have questions, reach out to your SFMS analyst or myself. Some agencies, if you're doing a large reorganization, you may have to look at reclassing balances at the start of AY27. So please reach out. We can help you with that. We may need to do some research and provide some guidance on what to do in that situation. It just depends how much of a change you're making. So please remember to get that information in as soon as possible. If you have questions, please don't reach out. We have to review multiple agencies and we want to get that review done before July 1st so you can start recording AY27 transactions as soon as the AY starts. If we're not able to complete that review or if you're waiting for a bill to be passed before you can finalize your structure, important reminder, do not use that new AY27 structure to code transactions until you've heard that SFMS has completed your review. It's just to make sure that we're not going to have errors. We've had situations in the past where we have agencies have to back out entries and repost them. We don't want to create that additional workload for you. We'll also be sending out notices as well about that. So again, just to make sure there's no confusion, I'm only talking about new programs. If your agency is using the same coding as you had in AY25 and it's rolling forward to AY27, you can start using that coding on July 1st. It's just if you have new program codes or changed program codes and you've updated PCAs for that, that's what we want to review before you start coding transactions to it to make sure it's set up appropriately.
Questions in the chat list.
Yeah.
Julie at PUC is asking, is the deadline always May 1st? And she's referring to the question for the 2 months.
Yeah, so that's the deadline to get that information to Sabres. They set that deadline. It does change a little bit each year, but it's usually early May. There are potential exceptions to that if legislation is in process. So you may have time, you may be notified that you need to create new structure after that point. So as soon as you know, let Sabres know. We're trying to make sure you hit these deadlines so we can get all the work done, have all the coding set up for the agencies and ready to go as of July 1st. But there could be exceptions to that.
And then Kat at OCB is asking, we don't need the new PCAs in place until the new federal fiscal year gets underway on October 1st. That's our only structural change every year. And she's asking July 1st still.
Yes, you still would want to use July 1st. With our system, you only want to make changes to PCAs with the change of a biennium. You can add new PCAs, but if you're trying to modify your structure, you want to align that with the change of the biennium. We always recommend, you've probably heard this if you've been in our user groups before, do not change PCAs if they've already been used to code transactions in that AY, because if you update the PCA, it doesn't change what's already posted to it. So then you can have all these mismatches, unusual reporting issues. You can get unusual errors if your budget was loaded in one PCA and now you're trying to move it somewhere else and record expenditures against it. So I would still plan for the July 1st.
Then a follow-up question on the May 1st deadline. On number 2 is there a distribution list for Sabres?
I don't know. I believe they have a distribution list. I would recommend going out to the DAS website and looking up Sabres.
They have an Orbit's help email. I believe they might have a news list you can sign up for on there. The main contact for Sabres would be Sean Miller. So I would direct questions to him and you can make sure you're getting that information.
Another question from Angelique. She's asking if, does Sabres have a deadline to get our new deal for structures entered for AY 27?
As soon as possible is what they've told us. They have their process that they go through to review structure to make sure that the CFO approves it. We're working closely with them and we can see they're making progress on working through that. Generally, they're pretty quick on their turnarounds unless they have questions for the agency. They may be reaching out to you if you're trying to delete a deal for an AY 27, a program code. They might need you to clear that AY 27 PCA first. Typically, they're doing that work in May, and they get that all done so that agencies can use the end of May and June to be making changes. They've already completed some agencies, so they are working through it. If you're not sure, you can contact the Orbit's help desk email and ask for a status if you haven't seen anything from your Sabres analyst giving you an update.
Questions here in the chat.
Thank you, everyone. Not seeing any more questions. I'm going to turn it over to Carly.
Hi, I'm Carlene Hancock. I'm part of the SFMS team. One of my major projects for every year is expired warrants. And just to make it fun for you guys, we do this in July. So on top of closing out a AY and beginning a new AY, I'm going to ask you to do one more thing, but it's different from anything you're accounting wise. You should have, those of you who are going to receive expired warrants or have been notified of expired warrants, you should have already gone out and seen an XRR3 report. If your agency does not have one available to you for that you saw in April, I believe it was April 2nd, dated April 2nd, you don't have any expired warrants, so you can take a 5-second break. Those of you who did have reports, there will be a second report printing of this report on July 15th that you'll be available on July 15th. It'll produce on the 14th when the warrants have expired. In April, we have been asked, we sent out an email to everyone, all agencies, asking for you to not only see if there's a report out there, but start the research process because as you can tell from all of the presentations that have been about the new year and biennium close, you have a lot that's being piled on you at once. So here are your responsibilities. Anything above $100 owed, we want you to research it. You need to make an effort to contact the payee, confirm that the payee wishes to receive the payment, confirm their address, so make sure it doesn't go out to the wrong address, complete the stop payment process and submit it to SFMS or reissue the warrant, all before July 14th. Monies are, if they're not owed to the vendor, we want a cancel warrant request or an AD 40. And this is the big ask. We really, really need these approximately a week before we actually roll the expired program. Last year, we had 25 warrants that did not make the cut. They got expired through the process because we're only allowed to cancel and stop 75 instruments a night. So if we get a deluge on us, we cannot close them all at once. And last year we got caught and they expired when you guys didn't want them to expire. So please, please, please get these to the SFMS team that closes them or stops them at least 3 days ahead of that July 14th date. And that July 14th date should be a Monday. So 11. Yeah. If I do my math right, it's about July 9th. Yeah, and that pans out because July 7th should be the Monday before. So,
Send out your email, are you gonna deadline days before?
it should have been in the email that we sent out in July. We do send out a secondary one, but it's telling you that the program has run. Need it, I can send it out again. I'd be happy to. Quick reminder.
It's not me who gets it, so I was just.
Anyway, agency's responsibility is to review that report, identify the monies, and determine the money, if monies are owed or not. Okay. And then after July 14th, after the program is run, the expired warrants will appear on the 44 screen with an E. They go from an I to issued to E expired. Any warrants that are in a P status are paid and they will not be impacted by this process. Warrants that expire on July 14th, please do not reissue the payments. At this point, allow them to be sent forward to Oregon State Treasury, especially if they are owed to the vendor. Do not send a stop pay because at that point, it does nothing in the system. So July 14th, this is a very important screen. Please do stop pays and 8040 forms. They are found on our DAS website under forms, under warrants. I don't know why I quoted, it's not a quote. It really, they are there. And warrant, so you want the warrant stop payment request form, the warrant cancellation request form, or the 2-year-old warrant cancellation 8040, and that's probably the one most likely. As the warrant cancellation request form, we request that the warrant be in hand and sent in with the form. I believe that's still being requested. Indicating yes. SFMS's responsibility really begins after July 14th. We do all the reconciliation review of the reports that come out of the system. We transfer other funds. So if you have other fund banking accounts, those funds are transferred to the Department of Treasury for the Common School Fund no later than July 31st. You need to properly format and submit the information to the Department of Treasury, Unclaimed Property Group via their web portal by October 1st. And then if you have any questions or concerns about this process, or if you're just completely confused by anything I've said, because you're so filled of knowledge with what's going on with ending our fiscal year in Biennium and starting a new one, which I totally understand. Please give me a call. I'd love to talk to you, or email me at my email me.
One question.
Yes.
Do you have a recommendation for those on the report that are less than 100? Is there any way to like clean that up and get them off of there? Or
They
do
will
you just recommend?
We recommend that you let them just fly through to the expired, let them be reported to the Unclaimed Property Group and let the vendors or the payees submit for payment on them.
Okay.
It's not worth your time it is and it isn't worth your
I just
time.
meant for like cleaning up the report purposes, not.
Yeah. Only if you really have nothing to do.
Yeah,
I
that's
suggest that
happening.
you say, yeah, I really want to clean up that $2.98. So yeah, we say anything $100 and more created. That's worth your time and effort. Anything underneath that, nah. You got stuff to do, man. Anyway, any other questions? Yes.
2 questions here in the chat. Antonia at ODF is asking, so if we did a stop payment and had to do an entry to clear it from the general fund due to it from due to it being from a prior biennium, do we still need to do the AD 40?
It should not be, well, okay, this is, it should start with, let's see, this year is 2025, so we start with July 1st of 2022, I think, and June 2023 are the is kick. It shouldn't impact them. They shouldn't be having to do any when they, it would be like if they did a stop pay or anything else.
Carly, yeah, I would say they wouldn't need
Yeah, I
to,
wouldn't
because
think
they've
they
already
need-
placed a stop pay or cancel, then they needed to revert the funds to the general fund, so they don't also need to do an AD 40.
Right. Yeah. Should be fine.
Next question is from Kat. She's asking if we didn't have a DAFR XRRE on 4.2, then we didn't have to worry about it.
No,
right?
and the other report you can always look at is your 3140 report that prints every single month end. And is your reconciling outstanding warrants for your bank recs. So anything in the period that should be expiring, which is essentially fiscal year 2023. If they're still outstanding on that 3140 report, then they should be on that XRR3 report. So nothing there, nothing on the report, you're good to go. Okay. You're all gonna want to pay attention to this one. This is really exciting. Datamart.
Thank you. My name is Aaron Wallace, and this is the Datamart update for May of 2025. Would you like you to notice the top or the bottom, sorry, of that slide, and it is Datamart support email. Please send all your questions of Datamart to that inbox, as I may be out of the office and I get you guys to send it directly to me. I want you guys to make sure send it there. So I have a great backup team, and they will help you when I'm out. I like to take vacation and be sick, so you know, please send it to the Datamart support inbox. Okay. All right, here's what you all want to know about. Yes, I wanted to make sure that you guys know that our query tool status, OB1 will be our tool through December 30th, 2027. Okay, you probably have heard that we're looking at a different tool. We have for over a year now been researching and analyzing on what tool could replace OB1. Now, the reason for the change is due to the fact that extended support will end for OB1 in December or in 2027. And so we just as a state cannot be on a tool that is not supported. And so just like what happened with Hyperion, we have to move to something else. I know it's a burden. Nobody wants to move. Nobody wants to recreate their queries. There is no magic tool. I know. I wish there was, that your queries would go into whatever new tool there was and they just magically reappear. And no, that can't happen. It doesn't happen. It's just not the way things work today in technology, because every tool is different. And so, as I said, we have been researching and analyzing over a year now with your guys' help. Thank you so much for your guys' advice and information that you've given us, what you guys desire in a tool. We took all that into consideration and looked at a lot of different tools. And I want to show you what it's kind of look like in the next 2.5 years, okay? With my timeline, and of course, I want to say it is subject to change. And you'll probably notice on this slide itself, there is actually some changes from yesterday. So you guys received an email with the slides, and yeah, they've already changed. But they're going to keep changing. You know, we want to make sure to get it right, but it is just a tentative timeline. All right, the very first list item there, we have been, like I said, researching for over a year now to come down to our #1 choice, and that is Microsoft's Power BI desktop. Okay, now, they say, well, I don't want that tool. That's fine. You can actually, as an agency, use whatever tool you desire. Okay, you do not have to use the tool that we recommend or support. But as Datamart team of one, I can only support so much. Okay, so I can't support every tool out there. Whatever you decide, if you're using Toad or if you're using Tableau or whatever it may be, I can only handle one. So right now, that is the tool that we've chosen, but it is in upper management's hands right now. So I can't say 100%, but I'm hoping at the end of this month, it will be approved and back in my hands and saying, yes, I can move forward with that tool and start actually doing what I need to do for you guys to be successful over the next 2.5 years. Okay. So again, OB1 is still the tool, still be using that for the next 2.5 years. SARS will still require their documentation at the end of each year through OB and that kind of thing. We won't be moving to a new tool until after that point, fully. Okay. So don't worry, you have some time. But yes, you will be needing to recreate your queries again. I know it's only been a few years, it seems like, but it is what it is. Again, we're being forced. I would not want to do this if I didn't have to. This is a pain in the tail for me, so I know it's a pain in the tail for you. And I apologize for that, but it is what it is. Technology just isn't the way. I mean, we used Hyperion for what, 30 years? And, you know, I wish we could do that with another tool, but it's just changing so much these days. All right, so the things that have changed are the next three line items there. We hope to, as of 6:30, provide you guys with some getting started instructions. If we get approval of that tool, we will provide you instructions for that tool. Yes, and so at least it'll get you going and you can start playing around with it at any time you want to. And I know actually agencies already have this and already have been using it. And so even the big ones like DHS and OHA and Department of Corrections and those kind of places already use Power BI currently. So it's not like a tool that isn't out there already. Now, some units use it, some units don't, but of course, we're using OB at this time. But we will be supporting both tools for that 2.5 years and starting out with giving you some instructions. All right, then in about another month, on July 31st, we will hopefully have a repository. Now, if you remember what a repository is, that's just they're built for you and kind of a starting point, and you can take them and then use them however you wish. And so we want to have a repository just like we have one today with OB and just like we used to have with Hyperion, we want a repository. And we want to copy what we have now and put it into the new tool. So we will have the beginnings of a repository by July 31st. And then I also want to provide you guys with training. I know you'd like this sooner than later, but this takes a lot of work on my part to create trainings. And I want to put it out there on Workday Learning for you, as well as have some Teams meetings such as like this. Online, I'm going to be at home. I don't want to be in the office. But do some trainings for you and get you going on that. But you can get out there right now. You can actually grab the product right now and play around with it all you want. There is a lot of trainings out there online and that kind of stuff that you could use. But I want to do a state-specific type of training. And so that's what I will be working on and giving you that on both Workday Learning as well as a Teams meeting. Okay. All right, some other nice timeline stuff that could change. We won't officially kick off the whole new product, as of July 31st. I know we might get officially approved this month, but to actually say, yay, we're moving forward, will be in July. But then we're going to give us some time to just learn it, play with it, do whatever we want for the next year. And then on June 30th, 2026, we want to be able to provide you with a DAFR and the CFA queries, because I know how important those are to accountants. And so they can see those, use those. They should be out in the repository just like they are today. And you will be able to at least compare OB to the new tool. So that'd be nice. But it takes, those things are quite crazy complex. So we're going to give ourselves some time to build those and have those out there for you. At least you'll still have 2 years to compare that information and make sure it's all good and you're good with using it. So that would be nice. And then also in June 30th, 2026, we're going to officially stop updating OB. And that's just for what we call the RPD. And that's just the behind the scenes of OB where we create joins and we do different things and we add stuff to OB. We're going to stop doing that because officially, we'll shut it down the following year. But the new tool, of course, if you guys have any work requests that you would like updated and have that working, we'll do those, of course. And those work request sheets are out on my website. So you can go ahead and check those out, send those to the Datamart support, and we'll see if we can get that set up for you. But we will stop OB's updates. And then officially now, December 30th, 2027, we will cease the support and operation of OB1. And what that means is we're turning off the OB1 server, and so everything will be gone. Okay. So you better realize that, and this 2.5 years, get yourself prepared and ready. Just like what happened with Hyperion, we were cut off then, we're going to be cut off again this time. And it's all saved on that server. All the files are saved on that server, and you won't be able to access them any longer because it'll be turned off. So rebuild your stuff. I know, again, Karen, great, thanks a lot. What are you doing to me? But yes, it will be stopped as of then. Just quite a bummer. I hate that, but 2.5 years. Okay, got some time. Hold your questions till the end, please. I know, it's running to me telling you want to ask me a lot of questions. I know. Give me just a little bit and then ask your questions. Thank you so much. So yeah, so right now that'll be the case. Things could change. We may push the date, but because support is ending in 2027, we don't want to be on a product that's not supported. And if something went wrong, boom, crash, and then we don't have anything that we can do about it. All right. So a couple little things. Yes, that's the tentative timeline. But it's still, since we're using OB, there's still stuff to do with OB, right? And there's a lot of training still out there. And I have 4 or 5 trainings on Workday Learning. If you haven't taken them, go out there and check them out. They're in Workday Learning, so you can take them at any time of the day. Can't sleep at midnight, go ahead and take a training. That'd be awesome. You'll learn a lot of great stuff. And you can take it anytime of the day. So that's great. And even retake them. If you haven't taken them in a while and you want to look at and figure out some stuff you forget, then go ahead and check those out. Also, with OB, tech support is working on a change in the security of OB because currently it's in an environment called the Shared Active Directory. They're getting rid of that technology, so they're moving to what is called Azure, and that's just a Microsoft product that'll do security for us. And they hope to have that done in maybe the next month or two, is what their plan is. But for you as users, you'll just log in a little bit differently. You'll go to the website and it'll be a click a button login instead of typing in your stuff and waiting a long time and being annoyed. And then, yeah, so it'll be a lot better that. So that's the only thing that should affect you guys. There's going to be some that I'll have to do to make everything just right, but your accounts might be a little bit different because it's going to be your email address. But that should be a lot easier than what it is now. So that's happening. I'm just waiting for that to come across my plate, and once they're done, we'll move forward with that. But now, some more reminders. Datamart passwords. Just like with every other passwords, there is no alert, which is annoying. But a really good reminder, because I get a ton of emails about passwords, set a pop-up reminder. Make sure to change that password before the 90 days ends. Because as soon as that ends, you got to get a reset. And I don't do resets. I know people think I do, but I don't. So you'll have to, there's multiple different ways of getting resets. But if you can get it changed just before that 90 days is up, it's so important. And a lot of people, their OB passwords are synced to whatever their work computer password is. And a lot of times work computer passwords don't have to be changed every 90 days. So make sure you put that pop-up reminder, and yeah, you would have to go out and change your work password every 90 days, even though DHS, you don't have to do that. But other people have to change it even quicker, like DAS. So 90 days, yeah, we have to change it even earlier than that. So you just remember, pop-up reminders is huge on your Outlook, was super important. Okay. And then in the OB, we have a repository. As I was talking before, we want to have that same repository in the new product, and we still have one here. If you haven't checked it out by now, that's a bummer. Go into the shared folders, repository, and final. There's probably something really great in there that'll help you out. And again, it's just a template, but it gets you going, and you can save it to wherever you want and change it however you like, add something, get rid of something, but it is just a nice template to get you moving. All right, so definitely check out the repository. All right, another really key thing with OB, we're still going to be using this for the next 2.5 years, so make sure filtering is so important. The problems that we've been having lately with the downtime of OB are all due to improper filtering. So the big key is go ahead and do agency and fiscal year filter on every single query. Okay, if those fields are there, do it. If they're not, because there's a couple tables that don't have those fields, and they're super small tables anyways, so it shouldn't be a problem. But agency and fiscal year, the number one and number two things that'll help your query speed up and be most efficient. Now, any other filters after that, super good too, but those two are number one and number two, right? Always have it on every single query. Even if you're an auditor and you're doing like a statewide audit, still do these filters. You know, even saying between this and this, which gets every agency out there, it still helps speed up your query and make it better. And then I know we've been having some login problems, and hopefully with the new Azure stuff, that'll go away. But for right now, when you are logging into OB, it may take a few seconds. Well, it's been annoying. It's been taking 15 to 30 seconds. And if it does take about that time and you're starting to get annoyed, go ahead and click the refresh button on your internet application. And yes, you will have to input your credentials one more time. For some reason, it goes in really quick the second time around. So I'm not sure why it has that delay for the first time, but it does. And so just to get around it, there you go. You can do the real refresh, type in your credentials, and go ahead, put your right in. Okay. So yeah, remember that. All right, now questions. You did have your hand raised. What was your question?
What was the new software that we're going to be using called?
Unofficially, because it's not 100% proved, it is Microsoft's Power BI desktop. Yes. Again, it's in the hands of management right now. So I'm hoping by the end of this month, we'll have a green light to go. Because it's just, you'd be amazed on how much documentation you have to put together to get something like this moved.
We're going to have the same training issue with OB like we did, or with Power BI like we did with OB the first time around. Crashed on everyone.
Oh, during the training?
Yeah.
Well, I hope not. We'll try and work through those kinks as we go to them. But yeah, I'm going to come up with this training, and what's good about a desktop version, if we're going to that, right, is that it's on your computer. So it has a lot to do with your power of your computer and your network. And with OB, it's a website. It's web-based. Okay, so it depends on a lot of stuff with the website and the network and everything like that. So I think less crashes and then less delay that you will see because it'll all be based on your computer instead. Kind of like back in the Hyperion days, I didn't know you were running an out of control query back then. Now that it's on OB is on a web, I know exactly who's running out of control queries. Yeah.
Shut up your query.
Yeah. So other questions? Questions online?
Yeah, we have 4 online. So.
Okay. Shoot.
One is from Don at ODE. They're asking, will we need to wait until December 27 to run queries using Power BI that allow us to gather data from other agencies other than our own? For example, when running a statewide balancing query, we need to gather data for both our own agency and the other agency involved in the transfer of funds between the agencies.
No, you don't have to wait. You can do it right now today, actually. You know, everybody has access to Microsoft's Power BI, either through various portals, but normally just call your tech guys and have them install it on your machine. We have a statewide license. That was another big, huge reason why this moved to the top of the list. We have a statewide license already through Office 365. So nobody, I mean, everybody has access to it. Your agency may not have it available right now, I mean, on your desk right now, but very easily call your tech guy and definitely do that because, you know, I mean, once this is fully approved and we're going, yeah, do it. Yeah, play around with it. Create your queries. You got 2.5 years to create your queries. Do it as soon as possible.
new proposed tool, Aaron, is it available in Workday?
I'm sorry, the new.
Trainings for the for Power BI, is it available in Workday?
So as I showed on the slide, we're not going to have official trainings in Workday until hopefully October. It takes a lot for me to build one of those and that kind of stuff. And since I haven't even been given the green light to go ahead, it's going to still take me some time. But yeah, eventually, yes, I will have it out there by October.
Will the tool itself have security access or will it rely on our own user security credentials? David at HEC is saying, I am thinking of queries that were built in Excel using Hyperion that became defunct when the person who set it up went to another agency.
Since it's a desktop version, it's going to be kind of like Hyperion was, and that you can save your queries wherever you like to your own network. You can run, whoever can run them, who has it. It's not going to become defunct unless, you know, it goes away kind of like OB will. You won't even have access to the OB ones as of 12/30 currently. But it's going to be, you know, no, you should not have the problems. You should not have any problems. And even if you created something in Excel, or you created something in Toad or Tableau, all those will still work. The Datamart is not changing. Okay. And we're still accessing using the RACF security, what we call security. That's also the same security you will be using with RBI. So we won't even have to change security stuff. I mean, yes, okay, if you only have OB security, you will have to get the other type of security. But we've had RACF security for over 30 years.
So it won't have single sign-on?
No. But Power BI does remember your credentials and everything. So once you log into something once, it has it locally on your machine, your credentials. So whatever query you build, it'll already be in there and you'll just run. But that'll be another thing. Every time you change your password, you will have to go into the product and change it in the product because it remembers you. And if you don't do that, then 3 times and you're out. Remember, you do 3 bad queries and you'll be reset or kicked out. Because it'll remember your old one until you change it.
Angelique at ODE is asking, the data is still available to query on the Power BI after 12/30/27, even though OB isn't available, right? So she wasn't here during the change from Rio to OB, so she's not sure how it went.
So when we changed from Hyperion to OB, there was a drop dead date, and so Hyperion queries were no longer even usable after that date. And yes, OB queries will no longer be usable after 12/30/27. So you will just start, you know, but you can start now and create those Power BI stuff, and they'll still work after 12/30/27. But yeah, the OB will not. Make sure you whatever queries you're using today, you jot it all down and make sure you get it somewhere else and say, okay, well, I got to build this, and this query in the new tool. You do it before 12/30. But cross my fingers, you'll get a Datamart news list email soon saying, yay, we're going with and you know, go forth and build all your queries. I know it's a burden, but 2.5 years hopefully is long enough for you to be able to create these queries and learn a little bit about this new tool. Because again, I'll be supporting both during that entire time. And yeah, it should be good.
Got 2 more rapid fire questions for in the chat.
Can you administratively add in a requirement for an agency a filter to reduce downtime?
That's an interesting question. I would have to look into it. I don't think so, but I don't know. I don't know the product yet. I've only just been researching how it works.
And then the last question, we've had several more come in, but we'll follow up with them via email.
Yeah.
So the last one is, would it be possible to get a Power BI BI user group started in the coming months for those who would like to learn from each other and bounce ideas off of one another.
Good idea. I'll try and do that. Because again, there's a lot of people out there that are actually already using it. And so if you want to learn from them, I hate to say it, but Shri, how to harm the correction is, he's an amazing guy who's been using Power BI for the last 3 years and thinks he can really help us through some things like, I can't even say his last name, but Badge Rat Car. There goes Shri. Yeah, he'll be my go-to. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
All right, we are right at 11 o'clock. So I want to thank everybody for coming, and you'll notice there are some survey links in front of you. There's also a survey link in the chat, and we'll also be emailing a survey link. Can't say survey enough in this closeout, because the only way we make these better is by you giving us feedback about what you're looking for from these trainings. And so we appreciate any of that feedback that we can get back. So thank you all again, and have a great day.
Thank you.